It's June 18th, 2016. Hello and welcome. My name is Brian McAvoy.
And I'm Tim Shank. This is Two Cyborgs and a Microphone, presented by Twin Cities Plus, creating an intelligent, capable, and resilient community.
We examine everything from homebrew modifications to our own bodies, all the way to brain implants being tested in laboratories.
Today, Brian and I will talk about the RFID and NFC implanted microchips that we both have. We'll touch on what they are and how we use them. Brian, let's start with RFID. I know you have an RFID tag, is that correct?
Yes, I have an RFID on the outside of my left hand. And you have one as well, I believe.
Yeah, mine is in the outer web of my left hand. What does RFID stand for, Brian?
RFID stands for radio frequency identification.
Just the same thing I have in my dogs.
Exactly. RFID has been implanted for quite a while into pets so that they can be identified if they're ever lost by a veterinarian.
So these microchips are 2 millimeters thick and 12 millimeters long. How do they broadcast anything?
Well, they come in all shapes and sizes. The way they work is a base device will emit a radio frequency. Those radio waves are harvested by the chip, and a serial number is spat back out, which is then received by the original antenna.
So, like inductive charging works.
Yes, exactly.
So I use RFID when I work in a corporate job where we have a large building and a lot of people, and we all have badges. Now these badges, they have our picture and some information about us. But also, we scan those badges as we walk in the door, and the doors automatically unlock for us. It's my understanding that that's the main use for RFID on the consumer level, isn't it?
As far as I know, RFID is great for relaying small packets of information quickly and easily because there's no need for contact. So an antenna could be completely waterproof and the tag could be entirely waterproof. There's no need to change the batteries, so they're very simple devices.
Excellent. And NFC is a lot like that. NFC uses the same radio waves to generate the energy inside the tag, which is then used to broadcast information. But an NFC has the ability to contain actual data itself, more than the initial ID.
Well, NFC is actually a protocol within RFID. NFC allows for certain things like two-way communication. It broadcasts at a very specific frequency.
So they're very similar. One thing that I use my NFC tag for is to hold information. I have in my right hand an NFC tag in the same place in the mirror position of my RFID on my left hand. My NFC tag is on my right hand. In that, I have a contact card. So there's my name, my email address, phone number, website, some other basic information. When I need to transfer that information to somebody else, all they need to do is tap their phone to my hand, and that contact immediately it opens up in their phone for them to add to their address books or to use right away for sending an email.
I do the exact same thing. People misspell my last name all the time. People write down email addresses incorrectly or type in the phone number wrong. My phone number isn't the same area code as around here. It's my hometown, so people aren't as familiar, or they might try to put the local prefix on there.
I saw an interesting use for NFC in the news lately. I've been doing some research recently. There is a person who is using NFC as a Bitcoin wallet. Now this kind of goes to something that I've wanted to do for a long time, because now we have these tap to pay. We touch our phones to the same terminal we scan our credit cards in, and the information is sent. I've thought from the very beginning when I first got this tag that would be immensely valuable. And now this person that I've read about, and I don't have his name unfortunately, he's keeping his Bitcoin encryption key on his tag, and he's written some custom software that then opens his Bitcoin wallet. What do you think about that?
I think that's pretty slick. My girlfriend uses her Apple Watch to pay for breakfast, and she thinks it's the coolest darn thing to just wave her wrist near this reader and have breakfast paid for. It would be even cooler if you could wave your bare hand next to it. However, one of the security features of the Apple Pay or Samsung Pay or any of those is that they rely on two-way communication. So when you authorize a payment, it goes through the internet. Your credit card company then asks your specific phone, hey, did you just do a scan, or is somebody trying to copy you? And your phone says, yeah, that was me.
I think that speaks to a lot of the security concerns that come along with biohacking in general and implanting technology. We don't actually understand a lot of the security risks that we're opening ourselves up to initially. And I think it's important to acknowledge that those risks are there and we don't know what they are. And keep an open mind as far as how to solve these problems when they do occur.
Yeah, understanding it is super important. Now, in my RFID, I've got a serial number programmed, and it allows me to get into my local hack space using that as my door key. I haven't been locked out of there since. It also acts as an extra layer of security when I log into my work computer. I've got an RFID reader there, and when I type in my password, I then scan my hand. It adds an additional series of numbers at the end of my password. So it doesn't replace my password, it strengthens it.
Is that two-factor authentication through a technological implant?
Maybe 1 3/4. It's not technically two-factor authentication, but it's as good as you can get with the hardware that I was able to order off Amazon. If I made something a lot more complex, yeah, I could definitely make something more robust and secure, but it's fine for what it is.
Interesting. See, now this is why it's so exciting, because from the very beginning, I do not want to carry keys. I don't want to have to carry a wallet. And what we've talked about here today is exciting to me because we've eliminated the need for both. We have individual private IDs. We have contact information in various forms. So you can think of insurance cards and IDs like that. We have the potential, at least with Bitcoin at this point, but perhaps something later, for payment processing. And then we have access to our devices, our cars, our homes, our places of employment that would eliminate the need for us to carry a wallet or keys.
Right? Everything in my wallet, except for the cash, is basically just a piece of plastic saying, I am who I am, and I'm authorized to use the services I've signed up for.
Cash?
Every membership card, yeah, I still carry cash. There's a cute little grocery store near me that only accepts cash or credit cards over $5, and they don't have Apple Pay, believe it or not. So everything in my wallet is just to say, yeah, I'm a member here. I'm authorized to be Brian McAvoy. If I could have one thing that was just in my hand at all times and not have to be carried and lost or taken out of my pocket or just fall out of my pocket, that would simplify things considerably for me.
One of the questions I hear all the time is, oh no, what if somebody cuts off your hand?
Oh, what if somebody cuts off your torso to steal your keys? Sorry, that was flippant. In security, there's a philosophy. Make something slightly more difficult to break into than it's worth breaking into. So what is your RFID protecting that is so valuable? In my case, it's my phone. Big deal. It's not worth that much. Somebody trying to exploit you will go for the weakest link. If they're trying to break into your house, they're going to use a brick and go through your window. If somebody's trying to break into your phone, it's still not the easiest way to get in.
And that's the similar response to what I have. Rather than cut my hand off, they could pick up the rock that's invariably laying at their feet to break the window to get into the house. Cutting my hand off is a lot of effort and is very messy.
For a lot of reasons, it's a bad choice. So yeah, I think that when used properly, it will only strengthen your security, and more importantly, it's going to increase the convenience factor.
I just wanted to bring that to an extreme to see if it's still if that effort to reward of cutting somebody's hand off is ever worth the reward, I guess is the question. I can't imagine that cutting somebody's hand off is a solution to anything except for maybe access to the highest value targets, the Fort Knox or something like that.
Yeah, and anybody in that level of security is going to realize that NFC or some kind of RFID implant is one level. There's going to be a retina scan, and they're not going to pluck your eyeball out, rip off your fingerprints, take your hand, take a blood sample, stool sample, urine sample. At that point, them putting a little incision on your hand to get the tag out is going to be the least of your concerns.
On my phone, I have certain applications that I can write scripts that do anything else that my phone can do. That's a powerful concept because nowadays our phones can do anything. With a little know-how, I can even have my phone controlling devices at a remote location like my home from across the country with very little effort. So that is one thing that I look at as a really high value with these, is as we develop this and as these technologies become integrated, for instance, my home automation with commands on my phone, then I have a way to initiate nearly any action I want on any other device.
Absolutely. Automation is doing more and more for us every single day. NFC or RFID is a way to identify yourself, and it kind of becomes a button only you can push.
Custom configurable button that only we can push. That's powerful. Let's talk about the procedure. So why don't you start with the procedure, because you've always gone with the syringes.
Both my RFID implants, the RFID and the NFC, went very smoothly. For both of them, I used a syringe injector. I had a professional piercing artist install them for me. They would tent the skin up just by pinching the sides and push the needle in, and a little plunger on the back of the syringe would push the implant into place. They retract the needle. I didn't need stitches. All I needed was a Band-Aid. The whole procedure from the point where they actually tented the skin and installed it was about 20 seconds. I've gotten ear piercings that were worse.
Wow. How was the pain on that?
Pretty minimal. It was over very quickly. It was, I would compare it to donating blood or donating plasma or a blood draw.
And it's a very similar needle that they use too, isn't it?
Yep.
So the syringe has a hypodermic needle just like any other syringe, maybe larger.
Definitely larger. About a 12 gauge needle.
That's roughly 2 millimeters, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so not small, but not overly large. I used the syringe on my first implant, which was the RFID. But after that, my piercing artist has always opted to use a scalpel. It is very much anesthesia-free surgery in that a scalpel is used to cut 2 very small incisions in the same spot. So the first incision cuts through the skin. The second incision cuts through the layer of fat that resides right underneath the skin. And then he uses an object called a lifter to carve out a little space for the implant and then inserts it by hand. There's definitely a little more pain involved with this, but I wouldn't say it's more than we've all gone through when we've cut ourselves in the kitchen. We've done that 100 times. After he does put the implant in, he stitches it up. And again, there's no anesthesia involved. To tell you the truth, the stitches are the most painful part of the process.
Now, it's interesting that you mentioned the anesthesia, because this gets into a whole legal thing. Somebody who's not a licensed anesthesiologist is not allowed to administer it. Also talking about legality, where we live in Minnesota, the implant laws vary from county to county. I looked all the way as far as St. Cloud in order to find somebody who had done this before, because not everybody advertises that this is a service they offer.
For people who live in Minnesota, in the Twin Cities metro area especially, the only county in the Twin Cities metro area where body modification artists are allowed to do implants and under the law is Ramsey County. So St. Paul is where I go.
And there's a reason we go to piercing artists. Doctors, they won't do these. They're not restoring function or anything. These are voluntary enhancements that we've chosen. So the medical community is not behind us on these.
But one of the values of having a body modification artist do these sort of procedures, a medical implant is a very rare and specialized procedure that's only done under certain conditions. I don't have actual numbers to back me up on this, but I suspect that there are very few doctors worldwide who've done more than 10 actual implants. Whereas a body modification artist has done similar procedures. My guy has done implants for 20 years and all different kinds in all different places in the body. They're not as deeply implanted as medical implants, but he certainly has a wealth of experience in doing just this thing.
Not to mention the cost. A piercing artist is going to charge a heck of a lot less than an operating room. Tim, have you heard about any medical risks associated with these implants?
There is one that I've heard of. There is an individual who has proposed that in animals, RFID chips have caused cancer. And I did some research into it. What I found is that this individual had cherry-picked results from very, very different studies to come up with the data to support their claims. And I don't think that anybody since then has ever come up with any real evidence that there's any health risks involved with these. That's not to say that we won't find them in the future, but I think as it is now, there is nothing on the horizon.
I consider mine very safe. I know it's encased in a borosilicate glass, which I think is usually just called Pyrex. So, Tim, if you didn't have an RFID and you knew what you knew now, would you do it again?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So would I.
I'm constantly thinking of new things to unlock, new scripts to write, to perform new actions as I'm developing other technologies, including home automation. And I would certainly do it again. How about you, Brian?
I would absolutely do it again. I look forward to automating more stuff with it in the future. In the past, I had my old car on lock when I would put my hand on the windshield, and it kept me from locking my keys in or going to my car without the keys, and it was phenomenal. I do miss that about my old car.
That's actually our summer project for this year, is we're going to set our cars up to at least unlock.
Very cool. And that'll increase security on your car as well.
But hopefully we can find a way to use our implants to trigger the ignition or turn on the accessories in our car so that we don't need keys anymore. I'm excited for that. I'd like to see somebody try to steal it.
I'd like to catch him on film. The views expressed in this show are the opinions of the hosts and do not reflect medical opinions or advice. The hosts are not doctors. This has been Two Cyborgs and a Microphone, a presentation of Twin Cities Plus.
Thank you for listening, and come back next time.